Hello and welcome back to You Up for More. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I'm Jared Freed. It is so good to be back here with you, Jordana. An unbelievable ending to a season that kind of was like meh.
This is our recap of the last two episodes, the wedding episodes.
Episodes 12 and 13.
This
is the Love is Blind. If you have never been here before, we have recapped the whole season. You can go back and watch and subscribe to this YouTube channel as well. We are a dating podcast, the You Up Podcast. We talk about dating and relationships. This is an offshoot of what we do on the podcast. We'd love for you to check out our podcast, the You Up Podcast, if you're here because you like Love is Blind. That means you like this subject, and we're going to go deep on
the four remaining couples on Love is Blind. I totally agree with you. The whole season seemed like it was going to be, I thought it was going to be very straightforward, a lot of weddings. I thought everyone was getting married, basically.
I thought everyone was getting married, or like, I guess
very little drama the whole season.
There was very little drama. It was very quiet. I guess you could say this was very Minnesota. Like this Minnesota nice, bless your heart. Like we don't give a lot. It's very like, stoic. We're
everyone's pleasant.
Everyone's pleasant. And
did you see any fights this whole season? Really, besides like Lauren and
even
Dave?
Lauren and Dave were like this.
They were like smiling the whole breakup,
right? Yeah. And again, there's a lot of feedback on like, and we've talked about this, how all the guys look alike, but like they're all like, whatever their background was, they're all Minnesota plays a role in this whole thing in this area of the country where obviously people don't give a lot. People don't express themselves. It's not very. It's just very cold, like the weather.
I thought they were giving a lot of like positive. It wasn't like no one was saying anything. Like I thought there was. That's why I thought everyone was getting married. I thought everyone seemed to be having. All that everyone was talking about was how much they loved and respected and appreciated each other.
Just the fact that they went to the altars. You have four
That's what I'm
couples.
saying, yeah.
And
all the way there.
All
not
the
even
way there. No.
Day before, nothing.
That's the thing that's so confusing because this show doesn't have like a rule where they, even though they kind of talk like it's a rule, like when they get to the altar and they're like, they give that speech, they're like, you guys
or
forego.
You never see each other again.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
it's
they
like
do
says
that.
Who?
Right. That was never brought up.
Is that in the contract? You're not allowed to stay together if you don't get married?
Right. You got to go away now or forever be, forgotten again. But it's like, so they can break up. Dave and Lauren break up before we get to this point.
Right.
The fact that they went all the way to the end and
all
3 out of 4.
Yeah.
3 out of 4 are just jaw-dropping moments. And we're going to go through each of them. We're going to go through each of the weddings.
I was like, was there conversations that were not shown to us? Because I really went into this thinking, it seems like everyone's deeply in love.
Like, I always think it's like kind of a formality that like, they're like, well, will you say yes?
Right.
I think that, like I always think they're joking.
Yeah. Right.
And this season, more than most of the seasons I've watched, it was just like, I can't believe it. And
my sense of it is that like production encourages people to not explicitly say to the other person on camera if they're going to do it or not, to heighten the stakes of these final episodes.
How do you have control over that with people who love each other? Like, I mean, I'm not to bury the lead, but like Daniel and Taylor.
Let's just knock them out.
Going in, I'm like, they were speaking to each other in a different way than the other couples kind of were. Like, I never, but again, I felt, I was surprised at the other couples. I mean, like, I was, I know
Daniel and Taylor, they were the most explicit, where it was like, it felt like, but I don't know, the rest of them, again, like the speeches right before the I do's, the dates the night before, there was no, like, even in the other seasons, you could see like Monica and Steven, like I remember he was like saying all the sexual stuff, and it was like she was kind of uncomfortable. Like there were fights.
Right.
There were just like fights during the whole season where you were like, I'm not really sure. Like Joey and Monica seemed like they were on the same page about every single thing that they were talking about for the entire season.
I think this is kind of the theme of the season, where it was like this. What I kind of found interesting was the Bachelor and Bachelorette parties to start us off was very much this season, more than most, was this like friction between the old school and the new school. And the bachelor party was kind of like showing that. You had these like even the bachelor party and the bachelorette parties are so like tropey. The men go to Viking Stadium and play football.
The ladies go to the mall.
Right. Go. Right? Is there anything more like backwards for 2025 than we play football? They go shopping. And it's like, that's kind of like the crux of all these relationships. It felt like a lot of the men kind of working against this like new age thing an uncomfortable truth, an uncomfortable change that they were being asked to make and on camera. And then they're going along with it. And you kind of have these women who are like modern, working, like, you know, one's asking for a prenup and we even have the prenup conversation. And I was like,
and he seems cool with it. I'm like, shit, that didn't work for her.
Right. Right. That was, and we now know maybe that was to get him to like, you know, to test him,
maybe.
You know, and I watched the prenup conversation.
No, it's also like, it's all people now, by now the show is popular, right?
Yeah.
No, everyone knows. I think everyone's aware of how they're going to be shown, about how their actions are going to be shown. I think everyone wants to be the good guy, and that's no more evident than in this city.
This city, you're right. The way they're acting, again, very
everyone
cold.
Wants
I'm
to
not
be the good
giving
guy.
A lot. I don't want to. Don't make me the bad guy. But
the men are smiling, with the exception of Devin, while they're being broken up with.
It was wild. And I'll say before we get into the weddings, the Devin prenup conversation, I was like, this is like the most human interaction I've ever seen on a reality show. Like, he didn't go, the lawyer checked it out. And she's like, yeah, he's like, and so what's mine is mine. It was him literally learning about what a prenup was. And it shows when you don't have knowledge, you tend to be fearful. You tend to be angry.
Right.
He got coached up on what it was. His mom looked at it. I don't know what it is. They probably had no idea other than what a prenup was called. And it's in marriages of someone that's taking advantage of another. Like, they had their pre-existing notions.
Totally.
Then he learns, he comes back, he goes, oh, so it's just this.
But that was kind of his issue, I think. Her issue with him was like, he is naive. He is kind of like not really willing to have like these conversations with her fully. Like that's sort of the theme of like the men on this on this season is he does say, I had my mama check it out, and my mommy says it's like it.
That could be unattractive.
My mommy thinks that it's okay. She wasn't sure, but then like now me and my mom I feel like it's okay for me to sign. Like, and she is 5 years older than him, which at 33 and 28, I do think that's like part of what was holding her back. She's like, I want to like. Even if he does, I don't even think it was that he didn't agree with her on politics. I think he just had no opinions. And I think she kind of mentions that. And then the thing about the check, which she threw in there, which is kind of weird.
I was like, I was trying to think of my overall feeling at the end of this. And I was like, I'm afraid that on this recap, I'm going to sound like
a bad guy,
like an angry man. You know, like I don't think the women came off great. I don't think that if the roles were reversed, and I do understand it's different stakes for men and women with a breakup societally, I do understand that. But these men, especially Ben on social media, has been getting crushed. And
just based on like the people who have come out about him.
The people who have come out about him with no real tangible allegations.
Right.
We've
discussed
that. But then
things,
now they're talking about how he goes around with his what's come out over and we're taping this before it comes out for the general public. So like, I don't know what the response is going to be, but there's been a lot about him like bringing around a card where it had his YouTube channel on it. Stuff you do in your 20s when you have dreams and you're looking to do something different than maybe
not now. Back in like back in his 20s.
When he was dating. Who knows when?
He's 27. Okay.
He's 27. Okay, a year ago. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know. It's just like these guys that they were trying, and then the breakup happens, and it becomes about stuff like that, where it's like it wasn't enough, and it's like. I don't know. That's weird to put off to the last possible second. That to me, it felt revisionist.
Which part?
That each of the women kind of were like, and he never did
Well, that's
this,
what-
and he
that's
never
what I'm
did that.
saying.
And it's like, it's very revisionist to
totally-
give this, like, it felt like they were trying to give this very big importance that no one could deny.
Well, that's why I was like, is the editing off? Because like it seem like they all revealed these issues that they had with the men that they didn't bring up to the men as issues during the whole thing. But I was like, is it possible they just didn't show those conversations to make it feel like more entertaining for us, the audience, when we watched the finale and they didn't get married? Because to me, I didn't see any of those. Like, I agree, it felt revisionist, but I wasn't sure if it was just not shown.
I don't think the way they said it, like, it was honestly like, and again, I do think this happens with women in a breakup. They have to say what. They have to have a good reason.
Well, I can't be getting rid of a good guy who wants to marry me.
How could I ever complain about dating again if I'm getting rid of a good guy who is down to do the thing?
Mm-hmm.
So Monica, Sarah, and Virginia all have these like conversations that we saw on camera that never got developed.
Right.
Like you said. So it's like, it must have happened somewhere else. Maybe it didn't.
If it didn't, then I do think that's messed up. And I think that's almost the way that a lot of men break up with women, where they secretly think about annoying things that they do, like that, or the guy with the napping, and then don't say it until the breakup. But this is crazy because it's at the altar. But I kind of felt like maybe they weren't showing it. That's why I'm not sure. So it's hard for me to say, like, if that's true, if they've never discussed these things and then they feel like they need to say that afterwards, that does feel messed up to me. It doesn't feel like authentic to me.
Well, I think we're giving these women a grand benefit of the doubt to even say they didn't show that conversation on camera. Because if I was them ending a marriage at the altar, I would say, we talked a million times. I brought it up a million times about, why haven't you said I love you? Why haven't you?
Well, that's why it's so surprising.
Why do you vote the way you do with your faith? Why do you go to this church that like doesn't speak the way I need them to speak? Mm-hmm. It just,
that's why it
wasn't
surprising.
Said that way.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't give them that benefit of the doubt. I actually I looked at this.
But that's usually not how women end. I mean, I've said this so many times. I think women end things by saying, please change, please change, please change. And then the men don't change.
And I agree with you.
I didn't see any of that on here, which is why, again, I so believe in that theory that that part of me was like, they must have cut so many of these conversations. Like, I do find it surprising that all three of these women would not have had like direct, like, I'm begging you to change so we can make this work.
It is very male to like have that out, that you can pull the string and go, that's what it was the whole time. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that one little thing. It is very male.
It feels male to me. That's why I'm so surprised by it. But
so let's start with Ben and Sarah. We'll go in order.
Right,
Ben and Sarah, they have this wedding. Sarah is sitting with her evil, lesbian stepsisters. I mean, like, they couldn't, but they were also like very cautious. And
so was the whole family. It was like, it's too fast. What's going on? The mom's like, I want you to be happy. Everyone's like, shut up, mom.
Right. Was the mom? I have this question. I was like, was the mom more religious than the rest of the family? The mom kind of spoke a little godly herself.
Right. She seemed to be more into the match than anyone else in the family.
Right.
To me.
And the sister with the girlfriend, or with her wife or partner, they were like talking on camera knowingly.
Right.
That like, well, I think she's just going to go along just to make everyone else happy.
I was like, to make everyone, or to make not you
right.
happy?
And that was just that whole behind the scenes thing. But like, to me, and I don't know, I want to hear what you think, Sarah was like, she's saying, I'm in love with this guy. I've never met anyone like him.
She keeps saying how great he is. That's why I was so surprised. She keeps telling everyone he's so great.
Right.
I think he's awesome. All of like this positive stuff about him, and like she seems to like think, okay, the church thing keeps coming up. She keeps saying, before this, they're on the date, and she says, I did think that was I think we should touch on that, the conversation that she has at the glamping thing with him, where they're gonna get married in a few days, and she's like, I listened to the sermon and I didn't like the way that it was phrased, and I thought that in itself was an interesting conversation. And I have issues with Sarah, but I do think that she was like, all right, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to see this for myself. I didn't really like agree with it. I didn't really like it. I'd be willing to go on holidays, but like, I don't feel like I would be willing to necessarily like do this all the time. Like I didn't fully agree with their take on this.
Right. Well, I kind of, when I heard that, the way she was listening to a sermon, the way she was listening to a church, organization was very different than how I would listen to like being in temple and hearing the sermon from the rabbi. Like
How so?
and I was thinking of Ben's response where he's like, well, I don't agree with everything they say and in the fashion they say it, but he's also leaning on this community that he obviously, we don't really see it then, but later on we see that this community
It's his whole life.
His whole life. Like these guys that he hangs out with, they are God guys. They are like rocker preachers, like they're like, this JC is a cool dude. Like they all kind of seem that vibe. So like, again, we didn't know this at the time watching it, but I'm watching this going, I think Sarah thinks that she is this like liberal superior but also like it's this weird liberal thing where she's like, I'm open to everything, but as long as everyone agrees with exactly how I'm open to it.
I do agree with that. I think she ironically had this thing where she's like, everyone needs to have this very hard, universal, unquestioning acceptance of this community, but I don't have to have an acceptance of anyone else.
Right, because she's basically saying that like any differentiation I consider evil.
Right. I need to be on the same wavelength as my partner. And she was saying, I just never imagined I'd be with someone who wasn't. And again,
which is fair to her. She did say that a bunch. Yes. She's like, he's not.
She's the only one who brought up any issues at all before this compared to the other two. I'd never like this was the only one where and even he is like, I just feel like we keep talking about this over and over again. And there's a lot of stuff that we have in common. And we don't really focus on that. We're just keep focusing on this thing. I thought with the two of them, this felt like a real relationship issue where she's like, I care deeply about this thing. You don't like the opposite. Your feelings aren't like the opposite, but you don't really, I'd like you to be more passionate about this thing in the way that I am. And again, I'm not saying either of I don't think like she's wrong. Like she's doing her due diligence. She's listening to the sermon. She's not saying I would never step foot in that church. She is somewhat open-minded about it. At the end of the day, she didn't agree. I didn't agree that she couldn't be with someone like him who clearly like has gay friends, like is open and seemingly like welcoming to her sister. And like, because I do agree, like he doesn't necessarily have to believe everything the church says to feel a part of it and to feel connected to it and to feel like he belongs there. But he maybe needs to be with someone who feels less intensely about it. And she needs to be with someone who feels more intensely about it. I thought that part was understandable.
But she's not scratching at the wound of something that if it's a big deal, you got to go deeper on this. Like you got to have the fight that we didn't see because I agree with you.
She wouldn't have the fight. She wouldn't say like, I think this is actually like a major issue because like I really need to be with someone who feels passionate about.
Right. Well, she didn't want to say, you don't think that's evil, what they said in that church? Because that's what she's trying to say.
Right.
She's saying you are at a church where everything's hunky-dory, but they say this one thing I heard. You would be around people who think this one thing I heard. And listen,
and I mean, she's entitled to feel that way.
Totally.
Right.
But you're also entitled to break up with the person that you feel turned off because they can get over that. Like I can also understand that Ben is not an evil guy because he goes to this community where
I totally agree.
The way they say this one thing to him, he goes, yeah, that's not how I live my life, but I do enjoy.
Right, but I get a lot of other things that almost like any other thing. Like, let's say his mom was like acting that way, and he was like, I don't agree with my mom about her stance on this, but like, she's a lot of great other positive qualities. I love her very much, and she's like a big part of my life. Like that, that's a version of it. That's a lot of people's parents, a lot of people's things. And I don't think at all that he's wrong. And for her, again, we always say like you're allowed to be like intensely into like a couple of things. This is one of her things. They're clearly not a match, but I do think she went into it like trying to demonize him for it instead of just saying like, I understand you feel that way. It's really not enough for me.
Right. She needed, you're right, demonizes, like and that might be a harsh way to look at her, but like, I don't think of it as that hard. I don't think she's an evil person for trying to do this. This is what people do in general. Like just the idea that she couldn't go, you feeling that way is something that I can't be with.
Right.
That's totally different than change your mind or I'll just not, let you know that this is such a big deal to me.
Right. And what she could have said was like, again, like, I respect the way you feel. It's not a match for me. For me, I'm looking for someone who feels more passionately about this.
So that never happens. We go to this like pre-wedding thing.
Yeah.
Her stepdad comes in. No one has ever been more stepdad than this stepdad.
Yeah.
This guy walks in. He's got lines. He's trying to like add a little humor to the room. You can tell he's just been stepped over his whole life. He even says,
This
is his chance to have like his one word of wisdom.
Right.
And it does feel like he's trying to like add a little like happiness to this room, or like, I don't know. When he walked in, I liked him.
It didn't seem like it was a fun getting ready event.
No, and it didn't. It seemed like he has been around this event before.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in this rodeo where he shows up late. He says a few kind of fun lines. He gives a hug.
That's a
he
good
tries to give
stepdad
perspective.
vibe, yeah.
It was a good. He was like the kind of stepdad you'd want, and he even said to her, "You've been a pain in the ass my whole life. Like you weren't ever easy, Like so, you're kind of seeing like this thing with Sarah is like not a new thing, Like
right.
And they go to walk down the aisle, and everyone's there, and they give this speech, and she's like, "No, I can't."
Right, but at first they give these speeches, and this happens in all the weddings. They give these speeches about how incredible and amazing the other person is.
Right,
and then
as you're about to,
right, and then she says, "No," she says, "I need to be with someone who's on the same wavelength."
And she's laughing,
right, and he's like, "Great, like we can," and he's smiling, and he's
right.
like, "Totally get that. Like, looking forward to just dating you." And she's like, and then this was the part where I started to get really annoyed with her.
Okay,
where she goes, "We'll see." And if a guy, like, if that was the thing where if the roles were reversed, I would be like, monster.
Right.
Like, if the man were, and she was like, all right, like, we don't have to get married. We can just keep dating. And he said, we'll see. Like, if Clay said that to AD.
Well, in the Clay AD situation, he was like offering, hey, let's date.
Right.
I say no to marriage, but hey, let's date. And it was like, do you want to be, in a situationship? And like, it was crazy.
Right.
In this situation, she's saying no, and it seems like we are breaking up right now. And then you're right. We'll see is like a cop-out.
Right.
But I do understand the cop-out. Don't get me wrong. I'm not the type of person who would go to the altar.
Yeah, you got to break up with them the day before.
Day before. You're going to make your friends and family come out for this? People, I cannot imagine.
It's like it's so embarrassing.
Beyond embarrassing, can you imagine taking a Saturday out of your life to go to someone's TV wedding and they don't go through with it?
Disrespectful.
To my time, I kept thinking of like the friend from college that was like, I guess I'll travel back to Minnesota. And now they've spent money and time and effort when you could have gotten this done.
And then when they're cheering, when she like leaves the
This is what got me mad.
That was annoying.
Well, this is when I thought about Ben and the social media stuff. And it's like, I don't know why a man would ever go on this show.
He seemed like a great guy, I thought, until like...
Well, they talk about his beliefs and his views as if he is an open neo-Nazi. Like they talk about him in the way that they're like, we can accept people for their differing views if we have to. And it's like, this guy has never said anything that really like rocked the boat for me.
And
like,
that's sort of the issue, I think, in this country right now.
Right.
Is
I like that we're going to the country.
No, I do think it's an issue in this country. It's like things are so intensely divisive that even to be like, you are not the so gung-ho intense on all the issues that I want you to be, you are a monster. It's not okay that it's not even okay that you don't disagree with me.
Right.
You have to like be on the front lines. You have to be
or you're the devil.
And that's I think an issue. I think that's an issue like nationwide. If I have to say.
It's an issue that makes people not talk. Like we can't even talk to each other because Ben, he's holding back. Mm-hmm. He isn't saying everything. I'm not saying that he's this open book. Mm-hmm. I mean, look at how he is with his friends. When she breaks up with him, they're praying for her and praying for him, and hopefully God lets us all, be fine in the end. It is like I'm like, whoa, you're dude.
Say something rude.
Right.
Be real.
Call her a bitch.
Yeah. Nah, you'd understand.
I would have told the friends clapping. But when the friends were clapping, I was like, honestly, like, listen, if a guy left a woman at the altar, I'd have this, we'd crush him. I'd also say that sucks for him too. Listen, Sarah, I'm crushing her, but at the same time, sucks for her too. She's caught in a position. No one wants to be mean to someone. No one wants to leave someone. But like the amount of grace she is given,
right?
And I know it's her friends clapping for her, but I kept thinking the internet of it all. And I hate that my brain went this way, and this is where I didn't want to sound bad. But like, there's people that are like,
well, she believes she's on the side of good,
right? And he's on the side of evil, just for being someone who wants to marry her that doesn't agree with all her opinions, and hasn't even said outright,
right?
And I just kept thinking of like these videos that were made that he like, stood a woman up and doesn't want to date her, and she's crying to the camera, and everyone's like, and it's like, well, what was this all for? Like, this guy just got like, he's 27. Like, it didn't work out perfectly with every woman he ever dated. And that's not to say he did it right. I don't know. I was like really grossed out by her and the way, she's leaving, she's laughing, she's smiling, like.
Right. And then again,
I know it's different for women than it is men, but
in the confessional after, I also thought where she's like, I wanted someone to be like more curious about where I was thinking in my mind. So it's like, why didn't you say that to him at all in any of these edits? Like, it was just like, and then she says like, well, I'll just go to church with you on holidays. I'll just like, there's no, and if a man did that, I would be really angry. I'd be like, why are you talking about the future with someone that you're not planning on being with?
Right.
And he keeps saying that he's all in. He keeps saying that he like really loves her. So
show me a moment he did something wrong on this show.
That's what I'm saying.
Show me a moment. And again, saying nothing, I could understand someone going, well, he didn't open up enough.
She didn't say that to him. But I need you to open up more.
Right. It's just, I watched this. And she's in the car, like, and she's apologizing to everyone, which I understand. Listen, I'm not going to like hold it. The laughter. I do understand you're uncomfortable, so you smile. Like, I can't, it's a tough
I'll see you guys in the back. Bye-bye.
Right. I don't know. She didn't.
I also think if your expectations when dating someone is that they're on the same wavelength with you about every single thing, you are not going to have a good relationship, because that is life. That is relationships. A good relationship aren't two people. It's not two people who agree on the same thing for every situation. A good relationship is people who have differences and are able to like understand and see someone else's perspective and work through it. I mean, no matter what the issue is.
You and I debate the male-female side of dating all the time. It has made us better friends.
Right.
It's made us understand each other more.
Do we always agree? No.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, go listen to like, any of our episodes where like we're not on the same page. Like that is a full out.
Sometimes I'm recapping this show.
Right. And we've had those here. And it's that's when you're really communicating. That's when you're really saying what you mean. And I do understand Sarah's perspective of like, he didn't care about voting. It's like, okay, if that's a non-negotiable for you,
right,
then you need to come to that conclusion, not at the altar.
I totally agree. I think she came off looking very bad.
Right. And to say it after the fact, I just think when you say it after the fact, it is a revisionist, as I said before, but also like, it's
not fair.
It's to bury.
I don't think it's fair. Because you
right.
don't give a chance to, if you say it in a confessional after the breakup, you're not giving the person a chance to respond to that publicly.
Right.
On their own. And you're also just televised.
If that's your big issue, that you want to be with someone who gets involved and is
that's also fine.
That's also fine. But like,
just say that I'm looking
for
someone
no
who's more
for the person that's some white dude who's getting crushed on the internet for looking like the rest of the white dudes,
right,
and being not interesting. Of course, he's heard that news. He's been told, don't say shut the fuck up.
I think she, again, there's this feeling of like, I can't just say this is not the match for me. Because it does feel like
frivolous.
It feels like this person is like, you almost have to demonize. She needed to demonize him to be able to do it.
Right.
It's hard to break up with someone who seems like a great guy, but they don't agree with you on this one thing.
On this thing that is important to you.
Yes, which is fine. Again, I think I don't think anyone would be mad at her if she said to him the day before, Ben, I know I keep talking about this one issue and you seem actually like a little over it. But I can't, this is such an important issue to me that I feel like I really need to be with someone that also feels passionate about it.
I can't let this go.
It's her religion. It's like her religion.
Sure.
She said she's not religious, but like, and I think that would be true if I met an Orthodox Jew
Mhm.
It wouldn't, and they met me. I could see them not wanting to be with me, not because they think I'm a horrible person, but because this thing is so important to them
That would be turning their back
that
on
they need, right, that it makes more sense for them to be with someone who's very aligned on this specific issue for
right.
them.
And when
Fine.
you don't have that fight with him, I actually think you don't care about it as much as you claim to care about it. You know, if
Mhm.
she's not willing to have that argument on camera and fight for these issues that she claims are such a big deal for her, why not? Give us your perspective. Why do you think he's being so evil for being, Switzerland? Like
Mhm.
I just, and listen, I saying these things are important to you. To me, she's playing a PR game. Like
Right.
she's playing a PR game. He's evil. I'm good. Sure, I left him at the altar and made him look like a piece of shit loser, but this guy doesn't really care about race relations. And it's like, and honestly, if we move on to the next wedding, the Joey and Monica one, this is the complete opposite. These two are hugging.
They're
They're
holding hands as
holding-
they leave the altar.
Right. Raising them to the sky. Look,
Right.
friends forever.
Right. And this is the first, I mean, to go back on Joey and Monica.
Mm.
This episode, the last date before the wedding, is the first time you get an inkling that anything is not on the same page.
We have thought that these two golden retrievers were literally hugging their way towards their graves while holding hands. Like we thought
they got engaged immediately.
Engaged immediately. They seem to have this peppy attitude. They're always joking. They're always having fun. They're always and we go to the date. What was the date?
They're at her favorite conservatory or something.
Yeah, they go to
it's her favorite childhood conservatory.
Just like all of us. We all have our favorite conservatory in the town.
And then he was sitting in such a way where I wasn't sure if he was kneeling. It was a weird visual.
Weird sit. They even acknowledged the weird setup. Like he goes to pull out the cushion. And he's like, let me pull out your cushion. I actually think, and I related to Joey and Monica, where I do this, where instead of fighting, I'll turn it into a joke.
Mm-hmm.
And then all you're doing really is changing the subject.
They just keep laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing
Right.
and laughing. And I'm like, okay.
So, and they laugh and laugh and laugh, but never, no, I love you.
I didn't know there was no I love you. I wasn't looking out for it, I guess.
Right. But it's at that point, she's looking for him to give in. So she claims on this date, he hasn't really fully.
She is not sure if she's into her.
Which is
seemingly
actually crazy for this to come up on episode 12.
Right. Where was this conversation way earlier than that?
I thought they were having a
They do
blast.
seem like BFFs. I will will give her that.
That was, are we friends or are we lovers? I guess is the question. And I just don't understand how she doesn't on this day say, you have she hasn't said I love you, so she doesn't she doesn't
how you're
think
feeling,
she's right.
Neither this is an issue where she's not willing to be vulnerable there. So what happens here is actually, and I said this to you over text, I think Joey has done here what Dave is too dumb to do, in that she went first. He's gotten her to break up with him, but it didn't seem like he was going to say yes either if he went first.
Right. So you're saying that Dave's whole game was trying to get Lauren to dump him,
right?
By being aloof and being holding his sister and friends hostage, as a carrot,
right?
For her
Let me see how little I can give her before she breaks up with me,
right? And Joey does a version of this where he's like, "Let me be her best friend and so much fun and giggle times all the time,
yes,
so that no question is ever asked to me, but I've never really said much at all." And at a certain point, once we get to the wedding, she'll be like,
right,
wait a minute. I have a friend, but I don't even know if this guy
is actually
in love with me.
Right. But he looks because he's not. He's very nice to her. He goes to all the things. Again, he seems like he's a good friend to her. He's never and he's not being as explicitly douchey as Dave. Dave's issue is that he goes too far too soon, where it's he thinks he thinks he has a leg to stand on in terms of why he's being standoffish, and no one else can see that, and everyone sees exactly what he's trying to do. He's too dumb to pull it off.
Right.
And I'm not saying that Joey's doing this maliciously.
I think
I do think he was not going to say yes at the altar. He wound up looking like
Well, she
a great
even
guy.
she even says like, "I'll do what he does,"
That's what I'm saying. Like,
and
and
then
she
it ends
and
up
luckily
she has to go
she went
first.
first. But I
How
think
do they decide that?
it seemed
I would
like they were
have a coin
having.
flip. You know, they should have a coin flip
Right.
before. Well, I won the flip, so I'm going to go second. Like you should do it like
Yeah,
they do
you
the
want to go
NFL,
second,
right?
Yeah, of
Like it
course.
should be like the kickoff in the NFL. Like they have a referee before the wedding come out, flip a
Right.
coin, and then if I was the guy, I'd be like, I'm going to defer. I'm going to, you know.
I mean, it should be. I mean, it's your wedding day, right? So
Right.
it should be so obvious
Well,
in an
this is
ideal scenario that you guys are, of course, getting married.
this is what's so crazy because we go to this wedding and it's all happiness. He's with his friends. They got
His
some
friends say, "How
flowered
nervous
shirts.
are you? 1 to 10?" It's like, I don't know, 5, 6.
Like,
chilling.
Right. So I guess we'll never know if Joey was going to say.
I don't think he was gonna.
Don't think so.
Zero chance. He seems thrilled that she's like. He's like total. He goes, totally agree. Like
It was such a like. It did feel like a relief. Weight was lifted off his shoulders. The way he reacted to the
Right.
turn down.
How did they not show that? How was that not a discussion that they hadn't? They were supposed to get married and they never said "I love you." If I had known that going into the weddings that they
Right.
hadn't said "I love you," I would have not believed wholeheartedly that they were going to be getting married.
Well, we were too busy like laughing along all the way with them. We thought they were done. We thought we were as tricked as maybe Monica was. Like, or
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know. To me, the most revealing thing was the conversation after the turn down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the most that any of them spoke.
Right. The conversation after the turn down is her saying he never said I love you or never like fully told me, which is like that's at the latest that's a Friday before the Sunday wedding conversation.
Well, that would be how you would know if it was also going to be happening.
Right.
You probably wouldn't say it back if you weren't planning on going through with it.
Right. And then I would say, okay, then we need to like not have my friends and family show up to this cabin because everyone is going to book tickets and can't get refunds.
Canceled her Pilates appointment.
Right. Yeah, and you don't want to see my mom when she can't go to Pilates. Right. Then Joey says, so she says that he never said I love you and that they were never like she never got everything she wanted out of him. And then they go to Joey. And Joey's response, he goes, they kind of, it seems as though the producer asked him, what did you think happened? And he's like, oh, maybe the sister didn't like me. I think the sister not liking me. Like he had no
he did say,
idea.
He did say,
and he goes, that's the first time she said I love you to me. I didn't even know she felt that way. And it's like,
you were going to marry someone?
Fucking?
Right?
Were they fucking?
I don't know.
That's
unclear. I mean, we know that Daniel and Taylor were not.
We learned that way later. Right? I didn't even know that was a side plot. But I'm just saying I was like, didn't you live together? Like
that's what I'm saying. Like there was I was like, did we miss a few scenes here where we discussed this?
I didn't even know she loved me. You guys were gonna get married.
How would you think someone was gonna marry you if you hadn't said I love you? Can you imagine in any world marrying someone you haven't said I love you to?
No, and I do think this is I do think part of this is the part of the country we're in.
Maybe.
I think this is like a very this is a Catholic, very like guarded, very Minnesota nice is literally a thing. It is Minnesota nice is we don't give you much.
So like Pleasantville? I just don't understand what's going on.
Kinda. I mean, like, because to do this on he had no idea. It would be one thing if he's like, we talk. I don't think they did talk about this because for him to go, well, for him to bring up the sister.
Right, where he was like, the sister said that she accepted me, but didn't really she gave us her blessing, but didn't really seem like she was over it. It's like, what have you guys been talking about? Just giggling for like 3 weeks? Like, what are you having, if you're not having sex and you're not talking about the sister issue and you're not saying I love you, like, what are you doing? Just ice skating?
Right. I'm with you. So that to me was like an outing of a conversation where you're like, oh, you guys don't even know each other. Like, and again, there is something that we have to acknowledge. The thing they bring up a few times is that this is 6 weeks of knowing each other. That's very tough. Like to get over that hump to get married. But like, I do think when you watch Daniel and Taylor, you go, and
that's what everyone says about them. You know, it could have been years. Feels like it doesn't feel like 6 weeks at all.
We're gliding down this hill and let's let the world come at us. And I do think it can happen that way.
Clearly.
But if it doesn't happen that way, I can understand the whoa of it all.
Completely.
So I think
it is
it
deranged.
gets missed.
It's deranged to marry someone after 6 weeks of knowing them on a television show. Of course.
Right. But I just think, but I do believe it can happen. But
sure. But for most people, it's crazy. That's why like the stakes never really make much sense to me, where it's like, you could just keep dating, like, but no one ever does.
Right. Like Dave's vilification makes sense after 6 weeks of dating. If you were dating someone after 6 weeks that was talking about meeting their parents, but then was like holding them back, talking about meeting their sister,
right?
But like using them as bait.
She doesn't just meet anyone.
Right. And to make you feel bad. Like that's a 6 week argument.
Sure.
You haven't said I love you yet. It's a quick, I can empathize the idea that.
But it would be like, obviously we're not getting married if we haven't said I love you yet. Like, why didn't either of them say that? Like when even in her confessionals from before the wedding, why didn't she say, yeah, like he hasn't said I love you, so I'm not really sure what he's going to say.
Do you think the boogeyman of the internet is too involved in this show?
Maybe that's what I'm saying. I feel like maybe things aren't being said so that no one feels like they're vilified or comes off wrong in an argument.
Right.
Doesn't want to go there so they don't look like an asshole.
Ben's TikTok video talking shit about him was out during this show.
Right.
And that person's become like a big time TikToker. Like they like
from this.
I don't know if it's from this, but they like report on salacious stories with their face to the camera. Like that person's out there on TikTok, like breaking news of sorts, or in the way TikTokers do. Like he sees that, like I'm not talking in front of these cameras. Like I'm already like in trouble. This hasn't even come out yet.
No, I actually think Joey came out looking great.
Joey came out looking great, but I think
all the remaining men actually came off. I wouldn't call any of them a villain.
No, there's nothing better than being a dumped man or a man whose wife has passed away. These are the two greatest of daters in our world. These are there because it's a guy who would commit but didn't get a chance to. Would commit to marriage, dumped at the altar guy. These guys are gonna fuck for the rest of their lives. This is like winning the Hunger Games.
They're respectful, they're nice.
They handle it in stride. Right. I mean, the way they handle it, I mean, like Ben, the way he handles it, I mean,
he's talking.
He might go like he might be a murderer. He was like Dexter. Like it was like
that's what I'm saying. He just kept like smiling and nodding, even if
God will win. God will be okay. Everything's gonna be fine. God will be. It's like. He's shaking hands in the lobby.
Right.
It was as if he got married. And then, Joey comes in on his longboard.
Do you think he would have dumped her?
Ben?
If he went first?
I think
he seemed in.
I think
seemed to really like her.
I think to me, again, that goes back to like the small town nature, the insular nation. Like 27, everyone's married. We're getting married. Look you're beautiful. I'm good looking. We're gonna make a great family. We'll figure out the church shit later.
Yeah.
Like I think for the men it's very simple. Like and I'm not saying that's
I don't think Joey
would
have done it, but yeah.
Joey came in everything's a joke. He came in on his longboard.
But he was saying like he has a serious side to him too. I don't think he was too quick to be like, great idea.
He really was on board with getting dumped.
Do you think they're gonna date?
I do.
You think they're gonna keep dating?
I think the way Monica talked afterwards.
It's like if they had any of those conversations, like while they were dating, I think they could have gotten married.
They seem like a good match. I
could see maybe they don't. Maybe like they both wanted to wait until they were off air to like really go there.
I was surprised he didn't like pick her up and longboard out of there with her in his arms. Like,
well, that's the whole thing. He's not that physical, right?
Well, that was the other thing that like I kind of was like, we need more information here.
Right,
like the women never really. She never really was like, you're not fucking me. And the physical
wasn't sure that was it, though. It could have just been like, I think they could have been having sex, but there's a way that in the beginning of dating where you're like, you want him to feel like he can't have enough of you.
But she even says that because she makes a very definitive separation between PDA and feeling loved.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand what she's saying. She's like, I'm not looking to like, and like, it's funny that she's trying to explain it and put words to it. It felt like someone who wasn't physically connecting with someone in the home.
Sure. I'm sure they weren't having wild sex.
It just felt like, again, you said friendship kind of was the thing.
But I think she is attracted to him, and I think she would have maybe it was more friendship for him Maybe he wasn't that
Right.
attracted to
No.
her. He never really talks about what he thinks of her physically. Maybe she wasn't doing it for
He
him.
was ice cold. The more this episode went, the less
Mhm.
I was like, oh, he doesn't say anything. He doesn't really like, even him with his friends, it was like him and his friends playing with the football to talk. Like, it's such a guy thing. Like, we got to have a
No eye
ball.
contact, yeah.
We got to throw something.
Yeah.
Like, and it was just like, I don't know. And they were like, we never seen this,
Yeah, I think that he wouldn't really, like I wasn't sure if he was that into her, like, romantically. I could agree with that, with her
Yeah.
statement.
So let's go to Virginia and Devin, which was like another one that like, this really surprised me.
Same. I thought that was a lock. He signed the prenup.
Signed the
That
prenup.
didn't and I was like, maybe that was a tactic on her end. Didn't
I
work.
do think Devin and his family were like, oh my God, we have found the catch of all catches.
I kind of agree.
The little girl that was running around.
This the niece?
The niece. Yeah. The niece running around, the cutest girl that's ever been on TV ever. She's like running around. She's making.
He's popping her in the air.
And he's like excited. She's excited to be at a wedding. Like this little girl, like kind of like she kind of like represented like the little girl at a wedding, like the
Right.
girl dreaming of her wedding. Like she's just like happy and excited. She's dressed up and he's playing with her. And like, it all just seems like this family is like, we fucking did it. We found this hotshot, beautiful woman,
right,
who's amazing, who
She's
has
a
a great
doctor.
career. And and her side of things felt very stern and serious.
I think the further in it got, I do think she was, and this happens with a lot of women, I think, where it's like, first you're like, I really want to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I found a great guy. But then as you get closer and as you become more secure in the relationship, then you sort of start to like think about the long term or the judgment. I think she was kind of like, I don't know if I want to be like the leader of this relationship and I'm like the more financially stable one. I'm kind of like the hotter one, in my opinion.
She's gorgeous.
I've got my shit together a little bit more and I'm also a little older. Like, do I want this kind of relationship? Which is something that a lot of women think of, I think, once they already have the person, whereas guys think about that kind of thing before they commit to being in a relationship.
Right. I will say, like, I was like, oh, maybe she's just super serious because like her aunt comes in and she's like gonna do the ceremony.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like, why would you bring your aunt in to officiate a wedding you werenn't gonna go through with? I would be a little annoyed if I was the aunt. Yeah.
I'd be like, are you gonna pay me still? The aunt, she comes in and like the mom, it just felt like it was business for Virginia. And like, but all the things she was doing were correct. It's like, again, to say that these women were acting very male, in a sense of the relationship.
Not saying any.
Like, this is like celebrating the anniversary the night before. You're like, I'm not sure if we're going to be together.
Right.
Like, she literally went to the end of the road. And
I do think it's crazy because like all of these, I think be valid to break up with these people for all of the reasons they broke up with them.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand why they didn't do it before. Like if Virginia had said to Devin the day before, I just don't feel like you're emotionally mature enough to get married. I want to be with someone a little bit more established in their life.
Yeah.
I don't think you're a match for me. Fine. You might be like a little annoyed with her, but I'm just kind of like, why haven't you brought any of this stuff up to him before?
It's she touched at it, but
during the political conversation, even when they're having that political conversation in bed, and she's like to him, I think it's really important that, like, there was a totally normal, I thought, very like calm, very nice conversation. But then she doesn't say anything until the actual wedding vows or after the wedding vows in the confessional that she's like, I wanted someone to have like more of their own opinions, more be able to express themselves, be able to have these conversations better.
In the same way Sarah could have gone back to Ben and been like, it's on my mind.
Right.
That's like
she doesn't they just sweep it under the rug. They just keep going.
Doesn't it? Yeah. No,
very male.
It's very male. Very like, I guess that's just in my head and I'll use that to decide my fate later. And
that's what men do.
I've done that myself many times. Like, I'm not going to like, let's work on this. Like, let's work on the relationship. She never really.
Right. I did feel horrible when he was crying.
Well, hold on. What about her dad? Her dad audibly yelled out. Like he does
like what?
What? Like he literally
Oh, yes. Okay, now I remember
that
this.
was her
Yeah,
dad
right.
or her stepdad.
Everyone the whole audience seemed very surprised.
Shock and awe. Him crying on stage. You could, again,
I would have felt, she did feel bad, but I would have felt horrible. Yeah.
I felt horrible. I was watching this guy, and then Devin was such a gentleman. Walks his mom out, takes care of his mom. He knew how much this was going to hurt his mom.
Was so excited.
His mom was so excited, and his mom will never forgive Virginia.
No, you could see when she's talking to him, she's like, she said she wanted to get married.
Right.
She said she was looking for a long-term relationship.
You could tell this
cute.
mom.
I hope she says yes. The last thing she says to him before.
The little girl, why? What's going on? What happened? What happened? The
monster.
Devin's dad. She said no. You gotta explain a guy getting dumped at the altar to a little girl, the wide-eyed nature of this little girl. She was just
again, I don't think they should have gotten married, but I think that the way she did it, I just don't understand why. There must be something with all these women why they all did it.
Why? Yeah, that was the thing. That's the
we
one
could have had
thing.
A more dramatic season if they just showed all these fights before then.
That was the one thing I kept. We could have. I mean, this season could have been 3 episodes. It could have.
There was absolutely no drama for a huge part of it.
We could have gotten the pods in 1 episode. Okay, here are the couples. We'll get to know them in Cozumel or Mexico. Okay, let's go to the weddings. Or then
there was
Dave
nothing
and
between
then just do Dave and Lauren for 2 episodes. Give me some Dave and Lauren, and then let's go to the weddings. Because I just don't understand what pushed them to go to the altar, and I do think. That's what made me annoyed at I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see these TikToks about how these women represent how I got turned down at the altar. Dave is a representative. I do agree. Dave is a representative of every situationship a woman has ever been in.
Right.
Every woman has dated a Dave, or a lot of women have dated a Dave, and they're going to go on TikTok and tell you about their Dave situation. It's not going to go the other way that way.
Nothing about this felt relatable.
Right. Sarah most of all, just because the way she ran out, it was very out of a rom-com. And I don't know. I think they're going to get applauded. I think they're going to get they're
definitely not going to get as much flack as men would get in the same scenario.
That I know for sure. But will they be applauded by the general audience?
I don't think Sarah will be
owning
applauded.
what they want and getting what they want and And I do think that's something we talk about in this podcast. It's okay to have a standard. It's okay, but it's also how you exhibit getting that standard is to be judged.
I would have applauded them too if they had all these conversations that happened the day before.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been right up there doing the slow clap, saying, "Good thing, stick to your standards. Don't settle." Again, not that these guys are bad. It would have felt realistic. It would have felt great. I don't think that. Again, I don't think any of the men, the final remaining 4 men, have done anything. Wrong.
No, I don't either. I'm just I just kept I hate to do this straw man comparison because I know it's not the same.
We did it against who was it last season? Who was it last?
Well,
we did it against Clay.
We crushed him. I mean,
and he deserved that.
But even if they had gone to the groom's suite and said, "I'm in the bridal suite. I can't shake this. I can't shake why we can't say I love you.
Better.
I can't shake
Fine,
why you haven't told me, how politics matter to you. I can't believe you haven't have the fight."
It's so male. I don't get it. And I always talk about this from The Bachelor.
Mm-hmm.
On The Bachelor, again, I haven't watched in a few years, but from when I watched, the women would break up with the men. The bachelorettes would break up with the men before they wouldn't get to the rose ceremony. The men always let them go to the rose ceremony and dump them there. The women just couldn't do it.
Right.
And that's why I find this so surprising.
I was surprised. I was shocked. I mean, unless there was a mandate
that's
that
what
if you get to a certain date, you have to go down the aisle. And we've talked about that last time.
Maybe you get paid more.
I don't know. I if it's paid more, it's even worse.
That's what I'm saying. Did they delete some scenes? It didn't make sense to me how a season this non-dramatic could have ended this way.
I think it's funny because I never had the thought that scenes were deleted. I was like, these are people who didn't speak. They
You
didn't
might
talk.
be right.
And again, the Minnesota Nice.
Because they didn't say anything in the breakup speeches. So you're right. You're probably right.
The
Yeah.
breakup speeches, they're fucking hugging, holding hands. Look at us, friends till the
Right.
end. So we go to the final wedding, which is our only success, Daniel and Taylor.
Very cute.
It did feel like a breath of fresh air. I don't know if that's the editing. Like, I don't know if they edited it that
I think
way.
we needed a win as the audience. Usually I'm like, fuck these happy couples. Like, there's
Right.
nothing here. But I did feel like after 3 of these, I was like, they've got to give us
I think
something.
this is my preferable ending, though. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather have 3 breakups at the altar
I
and
agree.
1 wedding.
Yeah. That's how it should be.
Yeah, I like that, even though we're talking shit about it. We can't believe it.
We
but
needed it.
Yeah,
but I'm
we
saying they
needed it.
gave us what we needed.
Right.
Yeah.
But Daniel and Taylor, like, yeah, this is all sweet. You know, his dad is like pumped. No one's ever been more excited for their son to get married. It's
all very wholesome, very sweet.
wholesome. Yeah, I don't even think is there much to say? Was there anything?
They didn't have sex, I guess, up until this point. I didn't know that.
And then they're gonna have sex. I mean, like, that's not how I would play it, but good for you. But
I mean, he just seemed like, and it's kind of like, it just seemed like he was like a really great, I mean, she seemed nice too, but it seemed like the consensus was like, he's just like this incredible guy.
Yeah. No, and this is after the fact that he almost got like crushed for following her. I mean,
turned out to be the hero.
Right. Accused of maybe the worst crime you could do on this show, like knowing who she was and pulling off this lie of the century to, like, honestly, the lie he was accused of is Ocean's 11 territory. To go into the pods, know the person, like, convince the person it is like horror film-esque.
I actually still think, here's the thing. I still think he could have followed her. Like I'm not, again, not with like a malicious intent necessarily, or it could have been, I think that that doesn't mean that he's an evil bad guy. I think he could have followed her and then maybe recognized her after.
But
I don't think he put it together, but
I mean, that's a great example of why.
Do you not think he
No,
might have done it? She's like, there's so many people who unfollow me. I can't go through every one.
Right.
Just take the phone back.
Well, it's more embarrassing she has the unfollow app, which I'd be like,
is it worth it? I might
dating.
just need to get married so that no one knows I have this embarrassing app.
Right. To me, that's an example of like what's kind of frustrating me about this show and about how aware they are of getting crushed on the internet. And you look at this guy, Daniel. I agree with you. I still kind of believe he followed her and forgot about it, unfollowed her.
Not maliciously.
No, I don't think he had a grand master plan to follow her, learn everything about her.
Make her fall in love with him.
Right, and then go on a reality show. Make her fall in love with him to live happily ever after. You know, this was his scheme instead of going up to her and DMing her and saying, hey, want to go for a date? Like, because he was so embarrassed of being 5'8".
Honestly,
like,
if the whole thing was a master plan to like find her and marry her, like, kind of romantic.
Right. But this is the point. Like, the way, the thin line between it's either marry her, like, or you are a sadistic person who went on this show to get followers that like is trying to take advantage of a woman. Like, it's just like doesn't seem very fair.
I agree.
And I think that's kind of like the going rate of this show. Like, you know, where Daniel's this like hero guy and, you know, there's just, but he was like an inch away. It's almost like getting accused of murder and then getting like, they find the DNA sample and they're like, no, it's 99% not you. So, and then everyone's like, well, 1%, it's probably him. You know, like, so.
Yeah. I was happy for them.
I was too.
I might have been happier for them because no one else got married, but I was.
Yeah, I didn't care about them. And then I was like happy for them.
They got the Christmas card. I mean, I felt like if they had done those Christmas cards in March,
they
did those Christmas cards in March and they didn't get married, that would have been insane.
Right. I mean, we didn't even get to see the Christmas cards. But
oh, yeah. I'm sure they'll show them at the reunion.
They seem like a fun couple. I kind of just let them move off to the woods and love each other forever. Okay,
but that's this season. We'll be back with the reunion.
Yeah, this was great. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you're watching, listening still. So subscribe. You like this show? We're gonna do these recaps every now and again. Maybe we'll train shows every now and again. We can find another dating show. But yeah, that's it.
That's it. We'll be back with the reunions. Bye.
Boom.
Kate McAuliffe is our senior producer. Our editor is Emily Freed. Candace Maniga is our senior social producer. Our associate producer is Will Maxwell. Additional production help from Shannon Jimenez Sasson. Be sure to follow us at u.up.podcast and send us your emails to uup@betches.com.